Okay, so you probably have heard of food sensitivity testing, but the problem with most food sensitivity tests that are on offer out there, where you could do like a little blood spot test and you ship it back to the lab, they have some clinical utility when you have something that you're hyperreactive to, like you're in the red. The problem is because they only test for IgG antibodies, they don't really give us a snapshot of how your body, your immune system is currently reacting to a set of food. So, what can food sensitivities do? So, when you eat specific foods or are exposed to certain chemicals in the food supply, you have activation of certain cells, right? So, certain cells of the immune system, and those cells release certain molecules like cytokines, interleukins, interferons, leukotrienes, histamine, prostaglandins, and a lot of these are inflammatory molecules, right? And then the quote unquote pathophysiologic or the negative effects of these chronically elevated or chronically stimulated histamine and leukotrienes and other inflammatory molecules, the effects of those are inflammation. You can have subclinical inflammation where it's just going on for decades. There's no sign outward, there's no symptom outward that you have this inflammation. And most people in today's world are living like this. But you can also have clinical signs of inflammation. You can have tissue damage, which leads to oxidative stress, further inflammation. For some people, you can have pain receptor activation, which means that genuinely certain foods, if they're triggering your immune system, they could be contributing to things like chronic pain. You can have smooth muscle contraction, which can also lead to things over a long enough timeline to things like high blood pressure, vasoconstriction, stuff like that, edema, water retention, excess mucus. You can have neurological damage because a lot of these inflammatory molecules, they can get into the central nervous system, right? You can have hormonal effects, and of course, you can have a lot of localized effects in the gut, like increased gut permeability or intestinal permeability, also known as leaky gut. So there's a lot of problems caused by food sensitivities. And here's the thing: the test that we use with my clients, they give us, they take your blood and they expose your blood to various foods and even some chemicals that are found in the food supply. And they don't look for antibodies. They look when your blood is exposed to that chemical or food or whatever, how much of a release of these previous things we're talking about here, these mediators like leukotrienes, histamine, cytokines, inflammatory molecules, prostaglandins, how much of that is being released when your blood, a snapshot basically of your immune reactivity at this moment in time, how much is it reacting to? For example, on this test, you can see this chemical phenethylamine found in food supply, aspartame, food colors, blue, and sodium metabisulfate. These are quite reactive, but you can see this person, their white potato is moderately reactive, corn and eggplant, and this person could be eating these foods every single day, right? You can have, for example, if you're eating soybean and you're reacting to it strongly and you're eating that every day, you could be creating an environment of chronic inflammation that leads to oxidative stress, to tissue destruction, tissue damage, which over a long enough timeline causes chronic disease and symptoms. Now, in terms of what we found with some of my clients, you can see, for example, here with this client, we caught lemon being super reactive. It was off the charts for this client, and it was a big surprise to them. They couldn't believe that lemon, something that they use so often in their diet, is causing this. But then you also have certain fruits, right? So you will not know if you're moderately or even highly reactive to foods unless we have actual data. Then another client here, he used to love his cashews, um, as a snack daily, almost daily, and they were inflaming him, causing a lot of immune activation on a daily basis. So if you can catch these things, these yellows and reds, for yourself and get them out of your diet, that already is a huge win. But as you can see here, you see how these foods are, the green ones are a spectrum as well, from zero point 0.9 up to 1.5 in this instance. So these are not, they're not reactive. But within the green spectrum, as you can see here, the cow's milk, that's a 1.9. So what we do is, when we get this lab result, obviously we remove these yellows and the reds, right, to give your body a break from all of these inflammatory processes. But what we also do is we create a plan for you to reintroduce over a few months these other somewhat more reactive foods within the 1.6s, 7s, 8s, and 9s within the green range. And this will give you a further improvement in terms of reducing inflammatory burden. And why is that important? Is because this inflammation is one of the causal factors of accelerated aging and disease. So if you can stop the inflammation or reduce it a lot, like really significantly, that, first of all, a lot of energy will then be diverted to healing processes instead of creating inflammation and then fighting and repairing the damage from the inflammation, right? So that's a huge, huge win. It really cannot be understated. And then here's another client, just as a final example, that was eating corn almost every day, and that was super reactive for him. And he removed it, and already like 2 or 3 weeks into it, he could feel the effects of that, removing that inflammation, right? And then for a lot of clients, things like that are a daily staple, like cow's milk or goat's milk, these are moderately elevated in terms of immune reactivity. So if we can remove these again for some time, that can really help a person restore their health and optimize their health further.